Back for another episode of the Climate Tech Inc. NFL Prediction Show. Cole McDaniel, Vince McKee. And before we get things going, Vince, I'll have you talk about our wonderful sponsor.
For the fifth year, Climate Tech Inc. has stepped up to the plate and they've hit a home run on being the banner sponsor of this show. They offer professional HVAC services in North Ridgeville. Well, they're located in North Ridgeville, but let me tell you, they will go anywhere in Northeast Ohio. Climate Tech Inc. From installations to repairs, trust them for all your safe heating and cooling solutions. When it's cold and you want to be warm, they have you covered. When it's hot, you want to be cool, they have you covered. Contact them. Climate-tech.com or give them a call 440-529-2880. Mention Vince McKee with Keon Sports.
Well, week 5 here of the prediction show, and first 4 weeks, they have not been great for me. To be honest, they haven't been great for you either, picks-wise, but you do have a lead on me right now, and it's a bigger lead than you've usually had early on in the year. A lot of times what we've seen, at least the last 2 years especially, I've been able to get out to a decent lead early on. As we get the later half of the year, you start chipping away one game at a time until finally we get to the postseason and we're neck and neck. And then you've been able to edge me out. So far this year, though, different story. I believe you have a 6-game advantage. Am I correct on that?
That is advantage. We are at 6. It was 3 going into last week. Actually, I had a clean sweep 3-0. Baltimore pulled it off on Sunday night to go up by 6. Took a look at the records here. Season 1 of this show was kind of a boat race. Kind of blew you out. Season 2, very close actually. Pulled away late. And as you said, Season 3 and Season 4 couldn't possibly get any closer. We came all the way down to the Super Bowl in Season 3. We both picked the same. I won by default. And then last year, I won by a point. So it doesn't get much closer than that, my friend. We always have a lot of fun doing this. And as far as records go, I'll keep this short. I've always said there's really only a few times I look at the records and kind of analyze them. Almost always Halloween, Thanksgiving, state championships, and obviously when we get to like the last couple weeks, it's you're really kind of burrowing in. But I've always said, when I'm out there with the girls trick or treating, when I'm sitting down for some Thanksgiving turkey, and when you and I are sitting together at states, those are kind of my quarter polls. So feels good to be in the lead, but we'll get to the picks here in a second. Took quite a few upsets. We'll see how this week goes. I didn't like the picks this week, by the way.
Well, I took quite a few upsets as well, so we'll see if we're maybe on the same page here. But we'll start with Sunday Night Football, and this one's an interesting game. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, they did lose at Indianapolis. Close ball game. Pittsburgh nearly came back. They nearly won that game. I took the Steelers. I felt like this Colts team has been pretty weak so far this season. I think it's one of those things where the Steelers, they were going to lose at some point. It was just a matter of when it was going to happen. Felt like it could be that Colts game. I was kind of on the fence when I made my picks. I ended up going with the Steelers, and like you had already said, you ended up sweeping me this week, and that was one of the games that that you got me on. So now the Steelers, they have a tough primetime game against the Dallas Cowboys, and this is a Dallas Cowboys team that I think they've been on a bit of a roller coaster. They started with a win against the Browns. Since then, they haven't looked too great, but they have a few wins under their belt. They still have some talented players. I mean, Dak Prescott's still a good quarterback. CeeDee Lamb is definitely a threat there at wide receiver. Like what I've been seeing out of Jalen Tolbert. Defensively, they have some good pieces, but Micah Parsons, he's a guy that's hurt and at least trending in the direction of him being out. So that does hurt them. That being said, Vince, I'm going to start this off by saying that as much as I think the Steelers team has gone off to a good start, I think Justin Fields is going to be their starting quarterback for the entire year. I'd be shocked if anything changes because he's played well. The Steelers defense is respectable. They got a really tough second half of the season with their schedule. Hard to believe with how they started that they would lose back-to-back, but I think they are. Dallas in prime time, I just have a gut feeling that Dallas is going to be able to get it done. Just with it being Sunday Night Football, I think Dak Prescott's going to maybe be able to shine under the lights a little bit better than Justin Fields, despite Fields having a good start and seeming like he's a good fit with the Steelers. So I have that one 24-17 Dallas.
And this pains me to say this, but it's accurate, two of the best fan bases, not only in the NFL, but I would say really in all of sports with Dallas and Pittsburgh. I mean, I would definitely throw Green Bay in there as well, and Cleveland for that matter. But this to me is such a fun game. If the teams are terrible, if they're good, it doesn't matter. I love when these two teams hook it up because of those fan bases. It's so much fun. You know, Pittsburgh's going to travel well no matter where they're playing. You know, Dallas is going to travel well no matter where they're playing. That being said, even this is a primetime road game for Dallas, I actually think they're going to step it up and win this one. You know, like you said, roller coaster. Terrible loss to the Cardinals. They lost to the Ravens. So two interesting losses, and their wins coming over the Browns and the Giants, not very impressive. I mean, two solid wins, but they didn't even look that great last week. Thursday night football against the Giants. So they are definitely banged up, as you said, and they're definitely kind of hard to gauge. Pittsburgh, I love Justin Fields, man, and I don't think anybody who has watched this show the last couple of years would be surprised by that comment. I'm a
Mhm.
big Justin Fields fan. However, I just kind of feel like he is really their only threat on offense. And it's only a matter of time before he gets dinged up if he has to continue to run to get yardage like he has been. It's just a rough go with that Pittsburgh offense. Their defense is going to hold them in every game. I don't think you're going to see Pittsburgh blow anybody out this year, and I don't think you're going to see Pittsburgh get blown out. They
Mhm.
are the epitome of that grinded out kind of team. However, I like the Cowboys in this one, and I actually agree with you. So far we're off to a 1-for-1 agreement here. I too will take the Dallas Cowboys.
So same page for that one. Monday Night Football, though, it's the Kansas City Chiefs who have not lost yet this year. I have not necessarily been that impressive, but they have found ways to win every single time. And the New Orleans Saints is who they're going up against, and the Saints have actually looked pretty good so far to start the year. That being said, again, is this the game that Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City they fall? Well, they're going to be without Rashee Rice, at least for an extended period of time. Still waiting to see if that's for the full year because Mahomes has really not played that well so far this year. He throws a pick right at the beginning of the game. Obviously, is I think mad about throwing the pick, but stupid attempt at the tackle. Puts his head down, not looking at the guy he's trying to tackle, and completely whiffs and catches Rashee Rice right below the knee. And looks like Rashee Rice may have torn his ACL. I know they're running a bunch of tests, so we'll see how long he's actually out. But no Hollywood Brown, no Rashee Rice. They're down to Xavier Worthy and Juju Smith-Schuster and Justin Watson. They really don't have much. I mean, that's a team that might need to trade for Devontae Adams or another wide receiver because they're losing weapons. Vince, so many issues going on, but the Chiefs still with 0 losses. Is this going to be the first?
No. And I also think Amari Cooper's headed there eventually. I wrote a little article, guys. Check it out, keonsports.com. It's going to fluctuate with what picks the Browns would get. It almost seemed like too good to be true when I saw a second and a third. Now that's switched to a 3 and a 4. We'll see how that plays out. But regardless of the Cooper drama, and we'll talk about that when we get to the Browns game, Kansas City to me is a team that just finds a way to win. And that's what's going to keep them in any kind of situation. I also feel like right now, Patrick Mahomes, like you said, has had a rough start and they're still 4-0. We haven't even seen the best football out of Patrick Mahomes yet this year. If he stays healthy, I think that's what we're going to see starting this weekend against a very sketch New Orleans defense, which, again, New Orleans, we talked about Dallas up and down. The Saints are very up and down. You have no clue what's coming out of them. Two very impressive wins where you're like, wow, these guys are world beaters. Watch out. Two not so great losses. What are we going to see this week? Time will tell. But I feel strong going to bed on Monday night taking the Chiefs.
The thing that's odd with the Saints is that their defense has actually been pretty good for a while. I still think that their linebackers are good. I think that they can stop the run and they're tough. Secondary, they have some pieces, but I don't think they have any like superstars at this point in the secondary's careers. I think it's pretty well rounded, but I do think that you're right. There could be a little bit of up and down because of a lack of true stars on that defense, guys who step up in the crucial moments. So we'll see. Against the Kansas City Chiefs, this is probably a time where you need somebody on the defense who is a star to make an impact play after play after play. I don't necessarily know if they're going to get that here against the Kansas City Chiefs, and I don't even think this is going to necessarily be Patrick Mahomes' moment to turn things around and have a great game. He's turned the football over. He's honestly been pretty average so far this year. But Mahomes is Mahomes. He's going to pull a rabbit out of his hat when he needs to. And I think that he and the offense, they'll do just enough to get the win here. I have it being a close ball game. Again, a low scoring game for the Chiefs. A lot of times you're thinking the Chiefs going to put up 30 points or more. This year, I would say the 20s is about what I'd expect from them. So 27-20 is what I have. Kansas City winning, remaining undefeated. New Orleans, though, a team that they're going to have their ups and downs, but there's some potential if they can piece everything together. It's just going to be probably a 3-horse race in that division between the Falcons, Buccaneers, and Saints. I can't tell who's the top dog yet.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being a 3-horse race. I think we're going to get some answers this weekend, and not even that long. Tomorrow night, actually, Tampa Bay and Atlanta will hook it up. I think that's when you're going to see the first kind of situational in that division. But that being said, how wild would it be? Really, either way, if New Orleans loses, and that's 3 straight losses after setting the world on fire the first 2 weeks of football. But let's say if they win, let's say if the Saints win, and then Atlanta defeats Tampa Bay, you would have 3-2 teams in that division after 5 weeks, and that division is generally conceived as really or received as really the worst division in football. So you might have again, 2 things have to happen, but you might have 3-2 teams, say that 5 times fast, in that division. We'll see what happens. But no, I agree with you. I think Kansas City pulls it off. They remain undefeated, and then they hit that trade market pretty hard.
So on the same page for our first 2, now we're going to go to the Cleveland Browns. And let me just say this to keep this about as blunt as possible. I'm sure anybody who really watches this for the most part, probably Northeast Ohio, probably going to be Cleveland Browns fans. And this team's not good. They stink. They really do. And the problem this year, and it's weird because it's a lot of the same guys returning on the roster, but you have so many issues right now. There's a lack of identity on offense, at least last year in Kevin Stefanski's system. And is Kevin Stefanski a perfect play caller? Was it the perfect system? No, but at least there was an identity. We're going to run the football. We're going to be physical. We're going to control the time of possession. And you know what? When we're going to actually throw the ball, we're going to utilize screens to Jerome Ford and David Njoku as well. And we're going to, that's basically a run. Even though it's a pass, statistically, it's basically a run. We're just shifting where we're running from, right? We're going to get the blockers out in front, and instead of running down the middle, we're going to actually get the guy out here and let him run up the middle. It worked, right? And then what they do to keep the defense honest, they take a couple of deep shots as well, just to make sure that the safeties didn't push up, and then they could go right back to running and doing screens. The problem is we're not seeing that right now. What we're seeing is, well, the lack of a run game. We're seeing the lack of screens. They're not getting the blockers out in front. And honestly, with this weak offensive line right now, I would actually, I think, rather still have some screens run and get them out in front, running forward. They haven't taken deep shots down the field. Vince, once in 4 games, the ball has traveled more than 35 yards in the air.
And then we got Jerry Jeudy killed doing it.
In 4 games. They're not keeping the defense honest. They know it's not going to go deep. They can pinch the safeties up and just try to stop the run and try to stop all these short throws underneath. And props to Deshaun Watson. He actually was maybe one of the stars of the game against the Raiders. That was maybe his best game I've seen in quite a while from Deshaun Watson. And obviously we haven't seen too many from him. Statistically, was it fantastic? No. But he actually was low on the list of problems in that game. And I think here's what I have to say about that, Vince. Because they lack because they lack an identity on offense. Comes down to the players not executing. It comes down to Ken Dorsey's system being called by Kevin Stefanski. At least Kevin Stefanski was calling the plays for his own system, and there's an identity. This is just why, if you're running Ken Dorsey's system and trying to implement that, is Kevin Stefanski the one calling the plays? The problem is the Bills have gotten better without Ken Dorsey, and you're not utilizing Ken Dorsey's system and actually letting him be the one to run it. So Ken Dorsey needs to be out. I'd rather see them
Mhm.
go back to Stefanski for this season and run what they were running last year. And if they ever want to make a move off of Kevin Stefanski's system to something more high powered, then you've got to let that person be the play caller. Let them not only be the offensive coordinator, be the play caller as well. And Kevin Stefanski can just manage the team as a head coach. That's my 2 cents. I think there's a lot of problems with how they have everything structured. Sure, there's a lot of injuries. There's guys out. The players aren't executing, but I think offensively, that's a big problem. I can't even tell you why the secondary hasn't performed well to this point. I don't get it, but this team's no good. And so, long story short, Vince, um, I had belief in the Browns the last couple of weeks that they were going to get some wins. They're 1-3 right now. Washington Commanders have been surprisingly good so far. The Browns on paper should beat the Commanders. Will they off of the form? No. I have the Commanders winning this game. I hope the Browns prove me wrong, but they've been so bad that I can't trust it. I think Jaden Daniels might actually tear them apart 26-22.
Ain't that something? Sitting there on draft night, and all of us, I believe, if I recall, thought Jaden Daniels was a stretch at number 2 when he went to the Commanders.
I liked him. I like his running ability.
But I think the overall perception in the room, so 3 out of 4. Again, with that being said, actually, I think I remember saying boom or bust. Regardless, that doesn't even matter right now. Forget what I think. The guy was phenomenal. He's been phenomenal through 4 weeks. He has the highest at 84%, the highest completion percentage of any quarterback his age, this point of his career. Granted, only 4 games. The guy's coming in, he's lighting it up, right? They're talking about, comparisons to Drew Brees, even though the styles are completely different, but just accuracy. I mean, you can find 2 different quarterbacks, but
Yeah.
accuracy wise, right? Accuracy. So that's what they've been talking about with them, right? So to me, the Washington Commanders, I've had plenty of practice saying Commanders, not that our word, but they they present some threats on paper. The Browns should annihilate them. Browns should win by 3 touchdowns, and they're not. I also have them losing. And let me tell you why I have the Browns losing again this week, right? In a game that, my God, before the season started, at this point in the season, I would have had the Browns at 4-1 after this week. That's how
Yeah.
ridiculous this is.
Mm-hmm.
It's how ridiculous. I had them losing week 1 to the Cowboys and then rattling off 4 straight. I had them beating Jacksonville, beating the Giants, beating who the heck did we just lose to? The Raiders, and then beating Washington. Literally, I had them 4-1. I mean, that's how disappointing this is. I'm not going to repeat everything you said because I agree with every single thing you just said. I really wish I could argue with you. I can't. Everything you said is 100% accurate. I'm going to add a few things real quick. A few things you didn't exactly touch on, but I highly doubt you're going to disagree with, I should say. For me, like I wrote in my article post game. Here's the thing, guys. The Browns, even going back to last year with Stefanski into this year, are extremely well prepared to take the field for that first drive on offense. They have scored on every possession, their first possession of the game, and a lot of times on their second possession, as we saw in Jacksonville, then we saw against the Raiders, where the Browns score on their first and then sometimes second possession of the game. From there, they don't make in-game adjustments. Other teams do. Browns, Stefanski, for whatever reason, have not. You see them. Really, that's what cost them. They just do not understand the meaning of the word adjustments, right? Horrible third quarters, on and on and on we go, right? It wasn't really since Watson had that big second half against the Ravens that the Browns have really put together a huge second half. Even when Flacco was dominating, almost all that damage was always done in the first half of those games. Go back and look. It's crazy. All right. In-game adjustments. That was my number 1 point. My number 2 point. Here's the thing, and I'm not going to get on the whole Watson thing again, but lack of blocking is not going to allow any plays to develop. So it goes back exactly to what Cole just said. And again, I don't want to be a broken record, but I will repeat this one little thing. You need to utilize those screens to drone forward. You have to use that speed. When you don't have an underneath guy like David Bell who could run 7 yards and catch something real quick, he's done for the year. You don't have that anymore. Elijah Moore, that guy's outside parking cars at this point. Forget him. It's ridiculous, right? So if you're not going to be able to throw down the field, and you know your offensive line can't block anybody right now, catch the defense over pursuing. All right, which I'm going to talk about in a second in a different way. But right now, if you have those screens, if you have those quick plays, you need to develop that. All right. Deshaun Watson hasn't thrown for over 200 yards this season. It's no coincidence. You need to find a way to possibly pop that big play. You don't have a running game, so that short passing game, even some quick slants, whatever it's going to be, that becomes your running game. Watson against the Raiders completed 24 passes for 176 yards, which, like I said, breaks down to only 7.3 yards of completion. If that's going to be your offense, you need to do more of it. I know it sounds crazy, but if that's what you're looking to do, then you need to have some screens. You need to have something, maybe a bubble screen, something that's going to utilize your speed. Right now, I'm going to make a point with this. I just said we need to catch other teams over pursuing. You know why? Because I see the Browns do it every flipping week. Your beloved Myles Garrett, not you, Cole, but you fans out there, had a whopping 3 tackles on Sunday. Everybody's going to talk about his 2 sacks. That's great. 3 tackles. Your defensive end cannot have 3 tackles. The guy can't get off a block, constantly offsides. It's so angering after a while that we are this many years into the Myles Garrett experiment. A guy with so much physical ability, so much talent. You've really done nothing with him except collect a bunch of sacks that haven't led to victories. Think about that for a while, Browns fans. Think about that. I'll leave it at that. There's a lot more I can say about the Browns. I am that frustrated. I don't want to get into it again. All I'll say is that if they lose, and I think they're going to, I picked against them, but if the Commanders win, and you're at this point in the season, 5 games in, I don't even know if you're bringing Nick Chubb back, because after that, your schedule begins to get real tough. And I don't know if you want to mess with that guy's leg, who probably only has, to even begin with, even if he was completely healthy. And man, I've heard Cole say this since really the day I met him. Running backs have a short shelf life, my friend. There's only enough tread on those tires. Cole was the first one to tell me, I think Zeke's gonna, he's gonna peter out here pretty soon. And sure enough, Ezekiel Elliott, really haven't heard from him since, right? You seem to know when a running back's about done. So
Yeah.
I think Chubb, if they're lucky, 1 or 2 more years, this is a must win. If not, I don't know what you're going to do, but I wouldn't rush bringing him back. And I'd also start to talk about trading Myles Garrett. Yet again, I'll throw it out there. You're welcome, Browns fans. So yeah, Commanders.
Well, if they lose to Washington, I mean, this season is pretty much over. It really is. Obviously I said before the Las Vegas game, I said it's not over because the whole AFC North, they've left the door wide open for you. But
Head.
but the Ravens and Bengals are going up against each other. So somebody's going to win that game. Somebody's going to pick up a win. The Steelers, even if they lose this game, they're still well ahead of you record-wise. And sure, they have a tough back stretch, but I trust that defense to keep them in ball games. They're going to pick up wins throughout the year. Things are just going against the Browns to the point where if they lose another game here, they lose to Washington, and this was supposed to be their easiest stretch of the year. You have to think about trading some of your pieces that are getting older that you can get good value off of them. I'm not necessarily saying that you're hitting a point where you rebuild and next year's a tank year. And I don't think the Browns are in a position where they ever have to go back to what they were, where it was like the 0-16 type of season. But I think that they can keep a lot of good younger pieces. They can get rid of some older guys who would be highly valued for competing teams this year and next year, and maybe get some draft picks and then have a young group that maybe can start to get some camaraderie, some team chemistry next year, and maybe could be competing the year after for a playoff spot or something even more. But I think we've seen this team's max potential. I think last year what we saw is as good as we're going to get from this current roster. And I hate to say that because I felt like on paper this team could have been better, but with the way the coaching staff's formed right now, with the way this team is in general, I think losing in the wild card round is where they max out here at the moment. And that's not good enough. That's not what these guys play football for. So something's going to have to change if they lose this game. Vince is right. I mean, the Browns need to explore a ton of different options. I say leave no stone unturned. And you don't obviously, if the value's not there, then you keep what you have. But if you can get a crazy haul in return for a Myles Garrett or somebody like that, it's business, right? I mean, how much longer does Myles Garrett have of being a top tier edge rusher? Sure, he's a physical freak, but what, 2 or 3 years he's going to start slowing down probably and not going to put up the same stats. When he's not putting up the same stats, I mean, what does it matter? You know what I mean? You can get some younger guys and maybe get a couple good pieces for one. So it's the tough part of this business. And every single person has a shelf life. No matter how much they mean to a city, matter how much they mean to an organization, these are human beings. Their bodies wear down, they get older, and Father Time always gets the best of everybody at some point. So in some positions, it's quicker than others, but that's the business of it. You want to sell high and buy low. And when you buy low, then you develop those guys and then you sell them high. It's a never ending cycle.
Football, if I could cut you off real quick, football is one of the few sports that you cannot be one dimensional and it helps the entire team. Baseball, you could be a home run hitter. You could have 100 at bats, strike out 70, hit 30 home runs. People are going to talk about those 30 home runs.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're also batting, ironically enough, you're batting 300, which that's why I love baseball. 3 out of 10 times you're successful. Okay. Basketball, you could be a 3-point shooter. You might not be able to dribble. You might not be able to pass. You might not be able to defend. But boy, oh boy, are you in there at the end of the game when your team needs a 3. All right. Myles Garrett is the most one-dimensional football player I think I've ever seen in my life. So it's very frustrating because he is so good at that one dimension. But at the end of the day, when your only dimension is actually hurting your football team and you still have not had a doggone defensive coordinator smart enough to know how to utilize that by either bringing a safety up or a corner blitz or whatever you're going to do, extra linebacker blitz. However, because when you're getting double teamed every single week, somebody's wide open to the quarterback. So frustrating. I'll leave it at that. I really think you and I could speak volumes on this and go on and on and on, but I think the frustration is very real at this point for Browns fans, and I don't blame them.
Yeah, and we'll wrap this up here really quick, down to the last few minutes here. Our upset picks, and I would toss this over to you and let you go first, but I want to say this because a team that I have, actually two teams that are playing against each other that are a part of this, and I want to use this example, right? Yes, the Buffalo Bills, they faltered against the Baltimore Ravens, but the first 3 weeks, that's the best I've seen the Buffalo Bills look in a while. And offensively, they were really good. I mean, James Cook has been scoring touchdowns. He's been a threat receiving, running that ball as well. But not only has he been a threat out of the backfield, but I think the collective unit of wide receivers has been pretty good too. I think Khalil Shakir is looking like a very good slot receiver, and you have Dalton Kincaid, who is a good pass catching tight end. Keon Coleman, I think he's going to continue to develop and be good. I think he's a red zone threat. He's a big body you can throw it up to. Might not create the most separation, but Josh Allen can just throw it up to him and he's going to go and fight for that football. I think he's going to get more usage as the season goes on. Matt Collins has looked decent. I mean, you can go down the list, and do they have a receiver that's as good as Stephon Diggs on that team anymore? No. But are they better as an offense now without Diggs? They're better without Diggs. With Josh Allen just distributing that ball around, it's fluid. It flows a lot better. So now Diggs is with the Houston Texans, and they're getting their footing there. And there's 3 very good wide receivers there. I'm going to say this. I wanted to use that as an example, right? Where sometimes you have to get rid of a star and things actually get better with maybe lesser talent, but being able to spread that football around. There's an offensive comparison. It can happen on defense as well. Now, my upset, Vince. I have the Houston Texans actually beating the Buffalo Bills. I think the Buffalo Bills have had a very good start to the season, but this one's in Houston. I think the Texans, they've been able to win some close games. Hey, they pulled off that comeback against the Jaguars. Stroud and Josh Allen, that is such a great quarterback duel. I'm looking forward to it. But I really do like this Houston Texans defense this year. I think DeMeco Ryans has a lot of good pieces to work with there. And I think the Bills are going to make it interesting. They're going to make it a good game. But I'm going with Houston. Surprised that they're underdogs at home, but that's because of how good Buffalo has been to start. Um, Buffalo fans don't have to panic because I have this one 31-27. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I don't think it's going to be a bad game. Buffalo doesn't have to worry about being 3-2 and oh no, the sky's falling. I think they'll be just fine. They can lead this game if they lose it and think, hey, we're good. On to the next. That's a good Houston team. These are two of the best teams in the AFC, in my opinion, right now, Vince. But like I said, I had that as an upset pick. Another one I do want to mention really quick. I actually do have the Cincinnati Bengals, who are underdogs, beating the Baltimore Ravens this week. I think the Ravens are the slightly better team, but at home, I got the Bengals winning that game because I think these two teams will split this season. So I would take Baltimore at home and losing on the road more so than the other way around. So there you have it. Are either of those two your upset pick?
No, and what's wild is because both of those were so close, right? When you looked at the overall schedule, and even when you looked at the spreads, like, man, that's interesting. Like, I can't believe Buffalo's a road favorite. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore, Cincinnati, 2.5. Baltimore on the road. That I could kind of see just because of how herky jerky and slow the Bengals have been to start the season. I'll make them super quick. I did go with Buffalo. I feel like Houston's a tick off right now. They'll eventually get there. We've talked about their Super Bowl potential, and I still think they have a chance at it. Although Buffalo's defense is pretty hyped up. I think they're going to want to shut down Diggs. That's going to be very, very interesting. Should be a hell of a game. Buffalo there. Baltimore, Cincinnati. I just feel like Baltimore might be the best team in the AFC this year. So I'm sticking with the Ravens on that one as well. So both of those, I am taking the favorites. My upsets, though, quite a few. I have Tampa Bay over Atlanta on Thursday night. I have the Jets over the Vikings.
I
Yes,
do
the
too.
Vikings in London because I just feel like Aaron Rodgers is better suited for that trip overseas. That's a big adjustment for a team to make. And in that situation, I'm going with the veteran quarterback. And that's kind of where I went with on that one. And you said you took him as well, correct?
Yeah, the Vikings have to lose at some point, right? How long can Sam Darnold go undefeated? Props to him
It's an
for having a
amazing
good
story.
season start.
Yeah, it is an absolutely amazing story. I agree. Um, I also had Miami over New England just because it's just two terrible teams. I don't know
Same.
how many more. Oh, you took Miami too. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I just can't. That one I really can't explain. I just kind of feel like Miami's bound to win something there. And then finally, I have Las Vegas over Denver, only for the sole fact that I am a realist.
Same.
We joked around. Really? Okay, so we joked
You
around the night of the draft.
you can root for the Broncos now.
Oh, thank God. Yeah. So because you guys are joking, teasing with me, they're not going to win a game. They might win 2 games, they might win 3 games. I actually think they're going to win 5 or 6. I'm loving what I'm seeing so far, but
They're
I still don't.
terrible. They
They're not
are
good enough to win 3 in a
horrible.
row.
They
They're
are.
not.
How have they won 2 games? Bo Nix passed for what? Negative
That
nine
first half.
yards.
Yeah.
That was ridiculous, and they still won that game. That's
Tim
all
Tebow
the
style right there.
that is
Yeah.
all on the Jets. The Broncos are so bad they were gifted that win.
10-9. Unbelievable. I'll take it. I'll take that dub any day of the week. So those are my official upset picks. I will rattle them off real quick one more time. Tampa Bay over Atlanta on Thursday. Jets in London. Miami over New England. Vegas over my Broncos. And then obviously my other upset pick, which we both agreed on, which really wasn't because of the Sunday night game, is the Dallas Cowboys. So yeah, man. Check out all of our picks at keonsports.com, but quite a few different thus far.
Yeah, going to be a very different week and a ton of upsets is what I'm predicting. So same with Vince. So could be a fun one, but we all at least have a couple different. So maybe I can make up some
Thus
ground here.
far.
But
Tampa Bay, Atlanta,
yeah,
Buffalo, Houston, and I thought there was a third there. So yeah. Oh, Baltimore,
Cincinnati,
Cincinnati,
Baltimore. Yeah,
right there.
yep. So make sure you check out the picks on keonsports.com. Vince, what's coming up for you this week?
When do the Jacksonville Jaguars play in London? Coming up for me this weekend, the Holy War. Can't wait. Anybody who knows me knows how much this rivalry means to me. My nephew's in town for 4 years, so I need to stop staying in town. He lives here now, goes to St. Ed's, so his first taste of the Holy War, I know he's excited. That's for me. Our game of the week is Euclid traveling to Brunswick. The crew will be on that one, and if only we had a scoreboard, Cole.
Yep. The scoreboard week 7, it will be up on the website. Make sure to check it out, keonsports.com. I'll be updating those scores throughout the night on Friday. Also, any Saturday games, I'll try to get that later in the weekend. So you'll see all the finals once those are updated online, and you can check that out on keonsports.com, as I mentioned. Also, if you have not already hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel, make sure you do so that way you can tune in for more content like this and the game of the week as well. For myself, Cole McDaniel, Vince McKee, that does it for us. Have a good rest of your week.